This is a new 2018 Mercedes-Benz G63 AMG 4MATIC SUV, courtesy of our friends over at Dick Dyer, Mercedes, and Volvo. The model comes in idiom gray metallic with tan Napa leather with AMG carbon fiber trim. This is the baddest SUV on the road today. It's the kind of car that says, I got lots of money, serious money, but I still want to own an SUV and drive over a lot of stuff. This SUV has a 5.5-liter AMG engine. What does AMG stand for? I don't really know. It's German. I don't speak German. But AMG is a racing engine, and they put a racing engine in an SUV. And if you don't think that means a lot, try keeping this bad boy under 85 miles an hour on the interstate. It's almost impossible. And by the way, if you want to own one of these, all you need is $147,245. But you got to hurry because they never sit on the showroom very long. I am Gary Pickren, and this is our new show, Brokers in Cars, Talking Contracts. Each week we're going to ride around the town in some really cool cars, talking to some somewhat cool real estate brokers about our contract. Today our guest is my good friend Fred Reichart from Coldwell Banker Residential Brokers here on Two Notch Road in Columbia, South Carolina. Fred and I have been friends for about 10 or 15 years. He used to be a builder, now he's a broker. The thing I like about Fred, he's got great hair. Look at that head. So what's on your mind, Fred, about the contract?
Well, as you know, I send you lots of questions about contract issues, and a few things pop up from time to time. And I appreciate the opportunity to share these things with you. But one thing that pops up often is I'll get a contract with owner of record. It won't have a specific name in there as the seller. And you know, what's the danger in doing that? I don't feel comfortable with those kind of contracts, but what do you suggest if I get something like that?
Yeah, that's a good example of a lazy agent. And that's one thing we've got to avoid is lazy agents. Right, today we have all kind of internet tools out there to find out who the owner is. You can go to richlandonline.com or lex-co.com and you can type in the address and it'll give you the owner's name. And so at a minimum, the agent should do that so that we know who the owner is. The problem we have if we don't get the owner on there is you may not have a contract. And we see that a couple of times. We've seen that in the past where he'll say owner of record and then he'll have a signature, which you can't read, of course. And so you believe it's one party, but it's in fact their spouse or their partner. And so when you get to closing, you thought the husband's the one who signed the contract, but it's actually the wife who owns the property. You get to the closing and the wife says, I don't agree to this transaction.
Okay,
I'm not going to close it. So if you want to make sure you have a contract, you got to make sure you have the right party, first of all. The second problem is if, let's say, a husband and wife do own the property and the husband signs the contract but the wife doesn't, now we have another situation that you've only got one of the two owners agreeing to sell the property, and that's where you get the after trading. And we saw that many years ago. I remember a situation, husband signed contract, wife didn't, came to closing, and all of a sudden the wife says, I can never agree to sell the house at this price unless I get to take the refrigerator after all back with me because I don't want to leave the refrigerator at that price. And so now we're sitting at closing, and what happens, of course, the real estate agent winds up paying for a refrigerator. And so it's important to get that.
Well, there are a lot more things that could go wrong with that than I realized.
Absolutely.
So it's good to hear your take on it to explain that.
And another part with that too, Fred, is that, corporations, you got corporations, you need to make sure you got the right corporation and so forth. So it's important that you get the right names.
And now that you mentioned corporations, we'll also get contracts from time to time with, it's not an individual on the contract as a party to it, but a company or a nondescript, non-individual name. And what's the danger in that? Because I don't ever feel comfortable because somebody needs to be responsible as a person to make the deal happen.
Right.
So if I get something like that, what do you suggest?
The problem is that let's say we get a contract and it just says ABC Company or ABC Properties. It's not a true entity. ABC Properties is an entity. It's either an LLC or it's a partnership, it's a corporation. So if it's not truly designated as a company or an LLC or whatever, then we once again may not even have a valid contract. So what we need to do is, again, there's some other tools we can do. One is we can get a copy or ask for a copy of the corporate documents. When they created ABC Properties, they had to file corporate documents, and in those corporate documents, it would say whether they're an LLC or a company or an Inc. or whatnot. And so when the seller's name is listed as ABC Properties, make sure it says ABC Properties Inc. and not just ABC Properties, and that way you have the true entity.
But a name is required on the contract somewhere to
Sure.
bind the deal, right?
Absolutely. And if you don't put the right name down, you put it down as ABC Properties LLC, but it's truly ABC Properties Inc., don't even have the right property, and again, the seller can use that to get out of the contract. course, you can have some lawsuits for unjust reliance and so forth like that, but who wants to get in these type of lawsuits? So, absolutely making sure. And then on the companies, and then the other problem I see a lot with agents is trust. People will put a contract in the name of the Pickren Family Trust. Well, there's no such entity that can hold property in that nature. When a trust is involved, the trustee holds the property. So it'd be Gary Pickren as trustee of the Pickren Family Trust.
Gotcha.
So we need to make sure those trusts are done right. And then the last one I would tell you, I don't know if you ever deal with churches, but dealing with a church as a seller or a buyer is very difficult. You got to check their name with the Secretary of State, scsos.com, and find the true legal name of that church. And with a church, some of them are hierarchical, like the Catholic Church. Some of them are nonprofit organizations. Some of them are congregational. And so you really got to make sure you get the right documentation and you get the right name in the contract. Without the right name in the contract, we just don't have the right contract.
Gotcha, that makes sense. By the way, this car looks, I think you ought to keep this car. Can we do a little off-road, drive some lots while we're in it?
Yeah, I would like to take this car up the side of that hill right now, because of all the cars I've ever driven, and I've driven a lot of SUVs, this thing just feels like you can drive over top of a building.
One other thing comes to mind on contracts. In today's market, contracts are happening pretty quickly, one after another. And if I get one contract that falls through or doesn't make it, and then I get another contract, what do I need to do to make sure I get a release on that first one so I don't have two contracts on the property at the same time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of sellers believe that if the contract falls through until they resolve the earnest money issue, they can't sell the property.
Right.
And we know that's not true.
True.
You can release the contract and still have an issue fighting over the earnest money, who's entitled to receive it. But the bottom line is, if the contract's fallen through and we know that the buyer has no intent to follow through with the contract, confirm in writing with the buyer that the contract's done. We're not buying the house. And at that point, the seller has a duty to literally has a duty to mitigate their damages. So they should put the property back on the market and try to sell it. Now, as far as the earnest money, they can continue to fight over that or try to resolve that later. It does not have to be resolved in order to do that. So one good caveat is every situation is different. So any agent should talk to their broker first before they do that. And if the broker has questions, they need to call a lawyer to make sure that everybody's certain the contract's been terminated. Because if it hasn't been terminated, you're going to wind up with dual contracts.
That makes sense. And you're always available if they have questions, or agents have questions. They know they can get in touch with you, and you give a good answer, maybe an opinion, but it's an answer and not have to look into it. So we appreciate your help.
Thank you, Fred. I always enjoy working with you guys.
Absolutely.
I guess I can get you back to the office now before or we can just go off-road. I think off-road would be a lot more fun.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man.
You only get this car one time, so let's take advantage of it, all right?
All right, let's tear it up.
All right,
I think Dick Dyer might get mad if I tear it up, but I'd like to go tear it up.
When are you supposed to bring it back, next week?
He says in an hour. I don't know. I might just keep it for a while. So, all right, well, I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
All right.
You're a good man.
All right, sounds good, bud. All right. Hey, before we go, Fred, I do want you to help me settle one debate we're having at the office. We have been arguing over what the worst song ever made was, and I think I have absolutely found it. It's called "We Built This City" by Starship. That used to be Jefferson Airplane or Jefferson Starship or whatever they were, but listen to the song and tell me this is not the worst song known to mankind.
Gary, that is my favorite song. What do you mean the worst song ever? I love that song.
I want to know what crappy city they built, first of all, and second of all, it's not rock and roll. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's not rock and roll.
Listen to the beat of that song. That is incredible. I'm going to play that at my next sales meeting.
They should have stopped at White Rabbit. If they'd have stopped at White Rabbit, they would have had a great career, but this has ruined anything
Make that your theme song. When you come in for a closing, make that your theme song.
Instead of Ric Flair should have had this in 2001, because this is awful.